Okay, so we're looking at our raw image. So we're able to access a lot of stuff in here that could be quite helpful before we get to Photoshop. Now, I'm just going to demonstrate, I suppose, the how much data you have to play with in RAW by re-exposing the image, and then we're going to look at dealing with a problematic part of the image, which is this window here, which looks a little bit overexposed. So first of all, the exposure allows me to drag that to the right and re-expose it, and this is the kind of detail that you're able to retrieve from a RAW that you won't be able to retrieve from a JPEG. If I undo that and we just look at all of these dark areas at the top and the bottom, when you record a JPEG or when you encode from RAW to JPEG, it basically looks at all of the raw data and it says throw out all of the information that could show me a brighter version of this and only compress it as black or as dark gray. And the problem is that even though that might look great when you bring it into Photoshop to do any additional work, you can't retrieve any details where they currently don't exist because the file has been flattened into a compressed JPEG format. So the exposure setting is very, very useful in RAW in that it allows you to get back details that you can then play with later on in Photoshop. So I could, get rid of these if I wanted, or I could add contrast or whatever I need to do. So what you should do is you should expose to get back any details that you feel you might need to do some work with later on in Photoshop. Okay. Now, as I say, that might mean actually getting rid of them, but you won't have the option if you don't have that detail available. Now, the other side of it that you can really take advantage of as well is targeting the various tonal areas of the image. So in this case, we have a very bright window, which would map perfectly to this white slider here. So if I take that white slider and pull it down, you'll see I'm actually able to get back from that kind of blown out overexposed look to something a little bit more natural looking. So if I undo that and you look at the window again, you'll see that it has that nasty kind of clipped look. But when I take that white value and I pull it right down, it brings it back to a more window frame look. Now, the other side of things that you'll notice detail come back into are the highlights on the hair. Okay, so if I pull the whites value down there, you'll see that you actually get some hairs back. Okay, so this is the kind of thing that you should be doing after you've done a shoot like this. It's just about trying to retrieve detail and trying to get your image into a position where you're going to be able to do good detailed work, but principally that you have the detail to work with. Okay, so I'm going to pull the whites value down there, all the way down, and I can always do a levels or a curves later on in Photoshop to pull them back up if I need to. And I'm going to take the shadows, just pull them up a tiny bit as well. I could take the black point down a little bit. I don't need all of that detail. Okay. Now, what we also have here is we've got some folds, which you might think, okay, well, they're not obviously going to work, but at least with that kind of detail, if you can get creative enough with things like clone stamps, you could actually turn this into like lumps of grass or something like that. You have some kind of natural areas of light and dark and shade to play with here, which is the important part. So I'll click open image, and that now is going to open in Photoshop, and it's going to give me that image to work with. Okay, so all of my detail that I retrieved in Camera Raw is now there ready for me to work with.